For decades, one name has been burned into the American consciousness, tied forever to one of our greatest national traumas. But behind all the theories, the grainy photos, and the sheer infamy, there was an actual person. So in this explainer, we're going to try to peel back some of those layers and really understand the man at the center of it all, Lee Harvey Oswald. It's a moment that literally stopped the world. President John F. Kennedy, smiling and waving in an open-top car, is shot and killed right there in Dealey Plaza. An act of violence so sudden, so public, it just plunged the entire country into shock and grief. And it didn't take long. Within hours, the police had their guy, a 24-year-old former Marine. Now, funnily enough, he was first arrested for murdering a Dallas police officer, not the president. His name was Lee Harvey Oswald, and he was about to be cast by history as the sole villain in a crime that would change America forever. So you have to ask, right? How does a person end up in that sixth-floor window with a rifle? Well, to even begin to understand the man, you have to look at the boy. In Oswald's childhood, it was a textbook case of instability, a life of constant chaos, really from day one. 12. Just think about that number for a second. 12 different schools. That's not just a number on a slide. It's a story. It tells you everything you need to know about a life with no roots, no consistency, and really no chance to form any lasting friendships or connections. Every few months, a new school, a new city, always the new kid. And if you dig into the details, it gets even more bleak. His father died before he was even born. His mother placed him in an orphanage when he was just 3 years old. By the time he was a teenager, he'd lived in 21 different places. You see reports of truancy, of him skipping school all the time, and even alleged violence at home. This wasn't just an unstable childhood. It was built on a foundation of pure chaos. There was no anchor, nothing like a normal family life to hold on to. And what's truly chilling is this isn't some modern diagnosis we're applying with hindsight. No, this was written by a psychiatrist back when Oswald was only 12 years old. He saw a kid who was already completely cut off from the world, a boy who was escaping into this vivid fantasy life where he was powerful, all to make up for a real life with no affection at all. It's a hauntingly accurate prediction of the man he was about to become. So as a young man, Oswald starts searching. He's looking for an identity, for some kind of big idea that would finally give his life some meaning. And that search, it would take him from the heart of the U.S. military straight to the heart of its biggest enemy during the Cold War. This right here, this really captures the two sides of Lee Harvey Oswald, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got the Marine, except he was a pretty bad one, court-martialed twice. And then on the other hand, you have this self-styled intellectual. I mean, while his buddies were out on leave, he was apparently in the barracks reading socialist books and teaching himself Russian. It's like he was two people at once, and he didn't really fit in with either group. So in 1959, he makes his big, dramatic move. He saves up his Marine pay and defects to the Soviet Union, thinking he's found the perfect society he's been reading about. But that fantasy just completely fell apart. The reality was, well, drab. He wrote in his diary about how boring the work was, how empty life felt. The disillusionment was total. So by 1962, his whole grand Soviet adventure is over, and he's packing his bags and his new wife and baby and heading right back to the U.S. And this was it. This was the reality of his so-called worker's paradise. A government apartment in Minsk. Yeah, he had a factory job, a life that was probably okay by Soviet standards. But for him, it was a cage. This wasn't the big, important role in history that he had imagined for himself. And of course, the whole time he was being watched by the state, which never really trusted him. He basically just traded one kind of loneliness for another. Okay, so he's back in the U.S., and he's completely disillusioned with both America and the Soviet Union. And that frustration, that search for meaning, it starts to curdle into something way more dangerous. He's about to turn violent. So in March of 1963, using the fake name A. Hittel, Oswald spends just under $20 to mail order this rifle. It's a cheap, old Italian military surplus gun. An unassuming weapon that, in his hands, was about to become one of the most infamous objects in modern history. Now, a lot of people forget this part, but 7 months before Dallas, Oswald had a dress rehearsal. His target was this guy, General Edwin Walker, a really well-known anti-communist figure. Oswald goes to his house, and from less than 100 feet away, he takes a shot at Walker right through his window. The only thing that saved the general's life was the window frame. It deflected the bullet. Oswald had now officially crossed the line from just having angry ideas to attempted murder.
But his other attempts to make a political mark were still kind of clumsy and just ineffective. He tried to start his own one-man chapter of a pro-Castro group in New Orleans, which basically just led to a fight and him getting arrested. Here's a guy who was so desperate to be a major player on the world stage, but he couldn't even hand out pamphlets without getting into trouble.
All right, this brings us to the fall of 1963. Oswald is back in Dallas. He's a failure as a Marine, a failure as a defector to the Soviet Union, a failure as a political activist. But a random twist of fate was about to give him the one thing he always craved, an opportunity to be noticed. A neighbor tells his wife about a job opening right here at the Texas School Book Depository. For $1.25 an hour, Oswald's job was to fill orders for books. I mean, it's a totally boring, anonymous job, but through a sheer, unbelievable accident of history, it gave him one very crucial thing: a perfect vantage point overlooking the exact publicly announced route for President Kennedy's motorcade. At 12:30 in the afternoon, from that sixth-floor window, he fires 3 shots. About 45 minutes later, he's fleeing on foot and gets stopped by a police officer, J.D. Tippit. Oswald shoots and kills him on the spot. He's finally cornered and arrested, not in some blaze of glory, but hiding in the dark of a movie theater. When the reporters swarmed him in the hallways of the Dallas police station, Oswald yelled the one phrase that would ignite decades of conspiracy theories. He denied everything. He claimed, "I'm just a patsy, basically a scapegoat set up to take the fall." So from the very beginning, the main suspect was also the main story's first and most vocal critic. And then 2 days later, just when you think the story couldn't possibly get any stranger, it does. As the police are transferring Oswald to the county jail, this local nightclub owner named Jack Ruby just steps out of the crowd and shoots him, point blank. And the whole thing happened on live television. This moment silenced Oswald forever. It meant his side of the story would never be heard in court, and whatever secrets he had, well, they died with him right there in that basement. The official investigation, the famous Warren Commission, came to a very clear conclusion. They said Oswald acted alone. And his motive? It wasn't some grand political plot. No, they said it was deeply personal. A man with a profound hatred for everything and everyone around him, who was capable of anything just to get the attention and historical fame he thought he deserved. And yet, the questions just don't go away, do they? A disturbed and lonely man? Sure. But was he really a lone assassin? Oswald's final words: the totally bizarre and public way he himself was murdered. His whole life is just full of contradictions. And all of that has left this deep, lasting doubt in the American mind. The man in the window was silenced, but in that silence he became more than a man. He became a permanent question mark at the very heart of modern American history.